is up, guys? EJ here, back with another video, and today it's going to be my weekly movie review roundup, episode 15. So I've got 6 new films to talk about this week, starting off with last Tuesday, March 8th. I watched Suffragette, directed by Sarah Gavron, starring Carey Mulligan, Meryl Streep, and Helena Bonham Carter. Suffragette, about the women's right to vote. The film is set in 1912 in the UK, when the women's movement for votes was really at its highest peak. The British government was denying them access to the voting polls, and this movement was really led by working class women in Britain at the time. Meryl Streep plays the very influential Mrs. Parkhurst. She only has a couple scenes in the film, though. She's barely in the movie. I mean, she's sort of this cult figure that the cops and the authorities are looking for, and when she makes an appearance, she's sort of a ghost. She appears to give this speech, and then she disappears. The main focus of the film is set around Carey Mulligan's character. She plays a woman working in a laundry service, but not your typical. This is more like prison condition laundry service. She works there with her husband, who's played by Ben Whishaw. She's not a suffragette at first. She gets caught up in sort of a scuffle outside the store as people from her work who are suffragettes, they throw rocks and break windows on the street one day, and she gets caught up in the middle of it, and she eventually gets turned on to this movement of women's right to vote. Helena Bonham Carter plays a physician who's also part of the movement. It's a very dour film, I gotta say, very depressing. These people live in absolute poverty in London, and they go through terrible odds to gain suffrage. These women, they get brutalized by the police. They get incarcerated numerous times. They eventually would move to more drastic tactics to get their voices heard. They would bomb post boxes, and they even bombed buildings. And the film sort of culminates with a sort of major event that happens at a horse race involving the King's Horse, where one of the women went onto the track, and she got run over basically and died. And it's a major part of the history of women's suffrage. And that point takes place in 1913. The end of the film, it sort of lists a lot of countries and when the years when women's right to vote became the norm. So that was interesting to see, especially since countries as recent as the 70s denied women the right to vote. Places like Switzerland and stuff like that. And it ended with Saudi Arabia, which didn't allow women to vote until just last year, 2015. So yeah, Suffragette, it's a important movie for women, for women's right to vote. And I didn't think it was a great movie, though. It's very dour, very depressing. Like I said, it's well made. Carey Mulligan's really good. Helena Bonham Carter is really good. Like I said, Meryl Streep is barely in it, if at all. Ben Whishaw is good as her husband. So Suffragette, I gave a 7 out of 10. Alright, guys, moving on to Wednesday, March 9th. I watched Burnt with Bradley Cooper, directed by John Wells. Yeah, Bradley Cooper stars as Adam Jones, a very successful chef who used to work in France for like a 3-star Michelin restaurant, but he blew it over there with drugs and alcohol, So he's sort of been shamed. He goes to New Orleans to shuck oysters before he returns back to London, where he opens up a restaurant, fancy restaurant with a maitre d, played by Daniel Boole. If you remember him from Rush. Um, yeah, it's a pretty decent film about cooking and Bradley Cooper yelling a lot inside the kitchen as he tries to make this restaurant really work. Sienna Miller plays a sous chef that he hires. That he sort of has a relationship with. He owes money to some like nefarious guys as well. So yeah, if you like movies about food and cooking, it's a pretty decent film. I enjoyed it. Yeah, Bradley Cooper was good. He yells a lot in the kitchen, yelling at all the chefs and all that kind of stuff. Um, Alicia Vikander is in it as well. She plays his like former girlfriend back in France. Emma Thompson is in it. Um, yeah, it's a pretty decent film, but yeah, Bradley Cooper just yelling a lot. Sort of the Gordon Ramsay. He just sits there at the service part where he inspects all the food and he like throws plates around and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, good cast, some good looking food. What's the name? Uma Thurman plays a food critic as well. So it's got a good cast. And Bradley Cooper and Daniel Bull I really liked a lot as well. He was good as the maitre d, and Sienna Miller was pretty good as well. So Burnt, I gave a 7 out of 10. Okay, moving on to Thursday, March 9th. I watched Black Mass with Johnny Depp, directed by Scott Cooper, I believe. Yeah, Scott Cooper. Johnny Depp plays James Whitey Bulger, probably the most notorious um, crime lord in Boston's history. The film takes place in South Boston, Southie, of course, that Good Will Hunting made famous. Yeah, he teams up with a FBI agent played by Joel Edgerton to basically give information to the feds about the Italian mafia on the north side of Boston. Meanwhile, Whitey Bulger just runs roughshod over Southie, killing people and left, right, and center, sort of doing his own thing. And the feds sort of let him get away with it because Joel Edgerton, he grew up in Southie. They grew up together as kids. So he's sort of in deep with Whitey Bulger and his gang, the Winter Hill gang it's called. Yeah, really good film. Great performance by Johnny Depp. Why he wasn't up for more consideration when it came to awards, I don't know, because it's one of his best performances in recent years. I thought it was fantastic. Just searing intensity throughout the movie. But you deep down, you know, this is a really psychotic dude. But yeah, it's a good film, really good film. Benedict Cumberbatch plays his brother, who's a senator. Um, Dakota Johnson is in the movie from 50 Shades of Grey. Kevin Bacon plays sort of the head of the FBI office in Boston. Um, yeah, really good cast. Peter Sarsgaard's in it. What's his name? Adam Scott plays a FBI agent as well. Yeah, really good film. Just a good-looking movie. It takes place in the late '70s, throughout the '80s, and Johnny Depp just a great performance as Whitey Bulger. So Black Mass, I really liked it a lot. I gave a 8 out of 10. Alright guys, moving on to Friday, March 11th. I watched Goosebumps, directed by Rob Letterman, starring Jack Black. Yeah, really fun film. Um, Dylan Minnette plays Zach. He moves to a small town from New York called Madison, Delaware, with his mom, played by Amy Ryan, who's gonna become the high school's new vice principal. So he moves to this small town. He's not really very happy about it. Leaves all his friends and the city life behind in New York. But his next door neighbor is a cute girl called Hannah. So he sort of strikes up a friendship with her, much to the chagrin of her father, played by Jack Black, who plays uh, some J.L. Stein, who's a famous horror writer, sort of like in the vein of Stephen King. But his books are under lock and key because the monsters in his stories magically come to life. And of course, um, while the young Zach is over at the house, they knock over one of the books and unleash the unholy demon puppet called Slappy, which is also voiced by Jack Black during the film. Yeah, really fun movie. Um, it's basically all these monsters running around and Jack Black scowling and really having fun with this character as this sort of reclusive writer trying to keep his daughter safe and away from the world and keep their secret under wraps. And all these monsters get unleashed on the town, and it causes the town to go into havoc. And the whole movie is basically the four of them. Zach has a young friend as well, who's kind of a scaredy cat, who's a fun character as well. And they're running around trying to get away from the monsters and trying to figure out a way to get them all back in the books that they've come out of. Yeah, really cool film. The effects are kind of not great, but the film sort of reminded me of a film that I would have grown up watching in the 80s, kind of like the Monster Squad, movies like that. Yeah, just really fun, has a good heart. Yeah, just a really cool movie. I liked it a lot. There's not many great movies for kids and adults these days, and Goosebumps was definitely an exception. I thought Jack Black was really good. Amy Ryan was really good as the mother as well. Um, yeah, just a really fun movie. Slappy was great, was a great character. Yeah, just a cool film. I liked it a lot. So Goosebumps, I gave a 8 out of 10. Okay, moving on to Saturday, March 12th. I watched Chirac, um, directed by Spike Lee, of course. Yeah, Spike Lee's latest film about the South Side of Chicago, which has the nickname of Chirac, like Iraq. Yeah, because the murder rate there over the last 15 years or so has been ridiculous. Um, at the beginning of the film, it mentions how the combined uh, deaths in the Iraqi War and the Afghanistan War is lower than the amount of shootings and homicides that have taken place in Southside Chicago over that time period. Nick Cannon plays a rapper called Chirac. He's nicknamed Chirac. He's also the leader of one of the two rival gangs that the film focuses on, the Spartans and the Trojans. They have one of their colors is purple and the other one's orange. So yeah, Nick Cannon sort of plays the main character, but his girlfriend, played by Teyona Paris, she plays Lysistrata. That's a weird name to say and even to read it. She's the one who is really sort of the main focus of the movie. One day she witnesses a young girl has been killed by a stray bullet in the street, and she sees the mother in anguish and pain crying when she comes up on her dead baby girl, and she sort of wants to figure out how can we put a stop to all this killing, all this gang violence, and they come up with the plan of abstinence, not giving it up to their men. So she approaches the women of the other gang as well, to join together. All the women in Southside Chicago. Um, no peace, no pussy. That's the slogan of the movie, basically. So all these women protesting gang violence and not giving up their bodies until the two sides, opposing sides, sit down and sort of come to a peace accord, if you like. Of course, that's very hard to do with with the whole sort of nature of the neighborhood and the lifestyle that these guys lead. Um, yeah, it's a good film. It's an important movie, but it's done in a way where there's a lot of it's not really singing, but there's a lot of rhyming throughout the film. Like they'll say lines that rhyme with what they say next, so it's kind of off-putting. It's kind of pretentious in a way. Um, but yeah, it's got a good cast. Like I said, Nick Cannon, Wesley Snipes of all people, plays Cyclops, the opposing leader of the other gang. Samuel L. Jackson plays Dolomedes. Um, he sort of narrates the film. He just pops up in certain points and talks to the audience, sort of dressed like a pimp, which is kind of cool. Angela Bassett plays a elderly woman. So yeah, as I was saying, Angela Bassett is in the film. Um, John Cusack, of all people, is in the movie, and he plays a priest. Probably the best scene actually in the movie is during the funeral for the little girl who gets slain. He gives this impassioned sermon that's kind of unbelievable. I've never seen John Cusack in a role like that. So that was kind of amazing seeing him do that. So yeah, Chirac, it has its moments. It's a really good looking movie. There isn't really that much violence that you actually see. A lot of it is implied. Um, but yeah, it sort of has a pretentious feel to it, even though it's probably an important movie. So Chirac, I gave a 6 out of 10. Alright, moving on to Sunday, last night. Um, finally, I watched Crimson Peak, directed by Guillermo del Toro, and of course starring Mia Wasikowska. Yeah, really beautiful, sumptuous, gothic horror movie. Mia Wasikowska plays Edith, a young woman, aspiring writer who lives in Buffalo, New York, sort of at the turn of the century. And after her father passes away, she gets wooed by this mysterious outsider played by Tom Hiddleston, who's interested in sort of getting help for this machine he's using to get all the clay around his estate. Um, his sister is played by Jessica Chastain, so the relationship between the two of them is iffy at best. But the film really takes off when Mia Wasikowska sort of marries him, and they go off back to his estate in England to I forget the name of it, something Hall, Albertson Hall or something like that. It's this really decrepit old house that's sort of sinking into the ground, which is surrounded by this red clay, hence the name Crimson Peak. So the walls are sort of dripping red, it looks like blood, and there's blood or red clay seeping up through the floors, and there's holes in the roofs, and the walls are sort of deteriorating. It's a really weird and sort of beautiful psychological ghost story. The ghost effects that we see a lot during the movie, especially the first one I really liked when she's a young girl. That was a really cool effect, and you see a lot of it throughout the movie. It's sort of a weird film as far as the plot goes, but the performances and the costume design, the production design are absolutely amazing. It's a great looking film. Charlie Hunnam is in the movie as well. Yeah, really sumptuous looking movie, but the story and the plot sort of prevents it from really being great, I thought. So Crimson Peak, it's a really great looking film. Tom Hiddleston's great as always, and Jessica Chastain wonderful, and Mia Wasikowska really good as well. Um, I wanted to love it, I just liked it. So Crimson Peak, I gave a 7 out of 10. So those are the 6 movies I watched this week. Tell me what you think if you've seen all these movies. Thank you for watching as always, and until next time, I'll see ya.
Bond. James Bond.